Welcome to the Her Voice Shines podcast, where we celebrate the power, brilliance, and resilience of women everywhere. I'm your host, Shanasia Washington. Join us as we share inspiring stories and insights from extraordinary women who have found their voice and are making a difference. Together, we'll create a ripple effect, illuminating the path to visibility and empowerment. Let's break barriers, shatter ceilings, and lift each other up. In each episode, we dive deep into the journeys of women who have turned their challenges into triumphs and their dreams into reality. Whether you're looking for motivation, guidance, or a community that understands your journey, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and remember, let your voice shine. Hello, everybody. Of course, it's Shanasia Washington again. We are back with another fabulous episode of Her Voice Shines. And like no other, I never skimp on my guests. I always bring you the absolute best women. And today we have a great one that's going to give us some great things, I think, in the health space and something that we all need to be focusing on. I'm, of course, calling you or streaming to you from Houston, Texas. I always say calling. I'm a 1980s kid, but hey, it's streaming. Without further ado, let's kick into our guest. She's going to tell us her name, where she's streaming from, and she's going to kick right into that story. Let's go.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for the introduction, Shanasia. And my name is Kate DeCosta. I am talking to you from Newport, Rhode Island in the U.S. And I am an integrative health coach as well as a Reiki master and a longtime master aesthetician. I have been in the spa and wellness industry for over 20 years, primarily as a master aesthetician. But during COVID, I decided to go back to school to pursue my, now the love of my life when it comes to career. But the health coaching really has kind of snuck up on me, and I've always been interested in health. And in college, I took a lot of human biology and human physiology courses, but didn't want to be a doctor or a nurse. So when the opportunity presented itself during COVID for me to have time and help to be able to go back to school because I have two small children, I just took the chance and kind of went with it. My own health struggles that started when I was younger, but really amped up in my 20s. They really kind of shaped my decision to become a health coach. In my early 20s, I went through a series of had relationships, and my gut health suffered a lot from it. When I was 21, I was diagnosed as being bipolar 2 with anxiety, and I was heavily medicated for over a decade. And I'm very grateful for those medications. They really helped out a lot when I needed them. But I always kind of wondered if there wasn't something more to my issues at hand. And so in my late 20s, when I started having all of these gastro issues and went to the gastroenterologist, went to my PCP, they couldn't figure out what was going on with me. I don't have celiac. Oh, you're just constipated. How am I constipated? Like, this is not making any sense to me. So I kind of did a lot of exploration on my own and a lot of research on my own, figuring out my symptoms and what could be causing them. And I came across an elimination diet. And when I did that, I realized that my body has trouble digesting certain foods, and gluten and wheat being one of them. And once I took out the offending foods, my mental health got so much better, to the point that I haven't taken medication for it in over 8 years. And, it just really kind of formed my quest to bring this knowledge to so many other people, because if I was struggling with those things and got diagnosed all of these things, but it really wasn't, it was actually just the inflammation in my body, how many other people could be having these issues too? And I suffered a lot with the mental health issues. I had hormonal issues. I had really bad melasma when I was in my late 20s and 30s. And it wasn't until I really kind of cleaned up my diet and stuck to it and started working on regulating my nervous system, that everything kind of fell into place. When I went to school to become a health coach, little did I know that I was also going to be going through a divorce at the time as well. But that's the way the cookie crumbled. And so I'm just, very passionate about helping women, especially single women, because that's my game as well. I just want people to understand that a health coach, kind of like you hire a personal trainer or, a teacher, if you want to learn music or something, when you want to specialize in something or really get down into the nitty gritty of it, you hire somebody to help you with it. And so that's where health coaching really comes in, is that we do all of the dirty work that you don't necessarily want to know about. Like, do you want to know which probiotics are best for you, or do you want to go through all of that? Or do you just want to have someone be like, oh, you have this going on, these are going to be the probiotics that are best for you? So that's kind of where we come in as a health coach, where I come in is specifically working with the gut health, to just kind of help people in their journey. I also, as a Reiki master, employ a lot of things that will help to kind of calm you down in your nervous system, because from my own personal experiences, I've found that you can take all the supplements that you want. You can have all of the, healthiest foods and pristine diet, but if your nervous system is dysregulated, you're going to have a really hard time healing, if you're able to heal much at all. So these are just things that I've picked up over time and that I've really become passionate about. And I want to bring that awareness and healing to other women, because I feel like I may not be the only one having these issues. So, if it's something that's really bothering you, you can definitely head over to my website. It's integratewithkate.net. And I'm also on Instagram with @integrate_with_Kate, as well as LinkedIn under Kate DeCosta. So I've had a lot of life experiences, so that I have a lot of, a lot of knowledge that I've gained to be able to bring it to everybody else as well. And I love working with women, because I feel like we are able to ground each other, and also to help ground the people around us and the relationships around us. And when we are centered, then we can, pour ourselves willingly and gladly, instead of trying to be a martyr and pour from an empty cup, which is something that I also struggled with when I first had my children. The balance between that was really difficult for me, and kind of coming up with okay, I really need to focus on taking care of myself. Otherwise, I'm going to get really sick, and my kids are going to suffer way more than, it's already hard enough for newborns and stuff coming into those worlds, not knowing what's going on. And to have, maybe a mom that's not as present as she could be, or, not as happy as she could be, or what have you, that can really take a toll. So to be the best mom that I could be, I realized quickly that I had to take care of myself, and that actually spread out into everything else around me in my life, between work and having balance there, my other relationships, and putting up boundaries and staying firm in those, and realizing that those are actually really important, because I wasn't taught that growing up. So these are all life lessons that I've learned, so that maybe you don't have to.
That's absolutely beautiful, Kate. One of the things I picked up on in you speaking is the fact that we're in a society where we're in information overload. Like, it's a great thing that we have all this information and that we can go out there and Google it and do all this research. But the other part is that overload piece, where it's too much information. And if you're siphoning through, I don't know if this applies to me or her down the street or the woman, on the end of my phone. I think from a perspective of you being the health coach, what would you suggest for the information overload? And that could be that special piece to where your services kind of transform that space. Because for me personally, I'll find myself on Google, it's 2 a.m. and I have 40 tabs open, Kate. And I'm trying to figure out which supplement, okay, which one. I heard
You're going down the rabbit hole.
So I want you to speak from the perspective of information overload, and really, really well that health coach piece comes in to kind of combat that, because we're in a space to where we're going to scroll and research, but that information may not always put us in the best position to get over the hump, right?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, like, I love this type of stuff. This is the stuff that I geek out on. But even I got information overload, and I was like, wait a second, if this is this, then why is this? And like, trying to figure it all out. And it ends up becoming like this giant, like, I don't even know what in my face. And I'm like, what's going on? I don't even know what happened. Much like you with the 40 tabs being open. You're like, what even am I doing right now? So I think what we need to focus on is just making sure that, like, above all else, you want to make sure that you're not like getting anxiety about stuff. So if you are starting to feel anxious about, things that you're looking into or anything like that, maybe it's time to take a step back and be like, is this something that I want to do on my own? Or is this something that I maybe should ask for help with? Because if you're already getting anxious and you're only looking at, some information, then how's it going to be when you try to implement any change? You know what I mean? It's kind of, it's not easy to change how you've been up until, like, however old you are in your life. It's not easy to change that when you've, built, neural pathways to be a certain way. All of a sudden you're like, oh wait, but that's not the way that I want to be anymore. Just kidding, I need to change it. Well, that's great in theory, but then when you go to implement it, you're going to come up with a lot of roadblocks and things that are being like, nope, oh, I can't do that because like that makes me feel unsafe. And whether or not you're conscious of it or not, that's absolutely what happens to your body. And so I think making sure that you're staying true to yourself and putting up boundaries, even with yourself, and being like, okay, you know what, looking into this type of topic brings me a lot of anxiety. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to outsource that, or I'm going to call somebody and talk to them about that because this brings me a lot of anxiety. And like, that's kind of the opposite of what we're trying to do. We want to try to like help people heal their gut health and, be happy. And if you're kind of overextending yourself, then that's not going to happen. So I think it's really important to make sure that you're staying true to yourself and your own boundaries that you have with yourself as well. Not even just, with food and stuff like that, but just with the information overload, you want to make sure like, okay, this is bringing me a lot of anxiety. Well, I need to outsource that then. And, whether it's you join a free class at the YMCA or the library or something, or you end up working one-on-one with me or joining a 30-day online program that I have or something, it's just kind of taking it in steps, breaking it down and taking it in steps and being like, okay, this brings me anxiety. So what's the first step that I can do to kind of, implement something? Or okay, you go into WebMD and you're like, oh, okay, this says that I'm going to die tomorrow. What is actually going to happen though? What are the possibilities? And you kind of go through them, because I mean, I don't know about you, but a lot of the things that you do Google on WebMD, it does say like, oh, you could die tomorrow. And you're like, what even just happened? You're like, I just looked up what this, like, why my nail had like a mark on it or something. And they're like, you have zinc deficiency by your
and see, that's that anxiety piece that you talked about that we'll add on, because there's all this information. And, one of them is like, oh, it could be this little thing. And then the other one's like, okay, well, you probably got like 1 foot already in the grave. So
yeah. Like you have melanoma and you need to go to the doctor yesterday.
And I think that's why I often sit in, like, I have all this information, but what is the best use of my time to doing this? So thank you for touching on that. And that's why it's so important that if we can't basically get the help that we need by the information, that's when it's time to get help, because so oftentimes we'll sit and water the information and take no action at all. And if you stay in the United States with our long list of health problems,
I know we spend the most in healthcare, and we are like a third world country when it comes to our actual health. It's terrible. Yeah,
it is. So when I seen health coach, I think it's so important that we talk about this at different angles, because I seen a funny meme. It was funny, but it probably shouldn't have been that funny. And he was in front of the camera. And he was like, "You Americans eat like you have free health care." I mean, and he was serious and like mic drop. And I'm like, okay, ouch. That kind of resonated, because to be this developed as a country and have that many health issues is just mind-boggling. I want to touch on this quickly because I don't want to miss this. You said that earlier on, you were in your 20s, you had a lot of good health, and then you also too battling with some mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
Where in that process did that become the diagnosis? Like, was there a period where you like, I know something's off, I just can't really put my finger on it? Where in the period did you get the actual diagnosis? And then how did that, I guess, mentally or internally, did you process that so that you can start moving forth to get in a healthier state?
So for me, I had an ex-boyfriend that ended up committing, he unalived himself, and I found him. And so I was already seeing somebody for that particular instance anyways. And then, continued seeing them for an extended period of time. And they were like, well, you have these other things going on, and you do have these kind of emotions and mood swings and stuff, roller coaster. And I'm like, okay. So I mean, like, I was diagnosed as bipolar 2, but I have a therapist now that I've been seeing for 6.5 years, and she's like, I don't have you down as that. Like, you're not. No. And that's without any medication, and before I was taking medication. So I'm 43 now. That was like a 22-year difference of coming from being diagnosed as bipolar 2 to like, actually, let me clean up my diet, let me take care of myself and listen to myself and the boundaries that I put up, and actually give myself self-love and care for myself and treat my body like the temple that it is. It's the only one I've got. So if it starts breaking down, I'm in trouble. And I was already feeling that in my 20s. So it was, a big progression of being like, okay, well, I had those, stomach issues at the end of my 20s. So it really forced me to kind of get onto that track, whether I wanted to or not, because doctors couldn't figure out what was going on with me. They didn't have any answers. And I was kind of like, well, this is BS. You're the doctors. How come you don't have any answers? I'm like, well, I'll find it myself, kind of person. So I did. And it kind of morphed into that. And as I was seeing therapists, over the years to kind of like get prescriptions and, do talk therapy and do the, what's prescribed to do. It got to the point as I was getting healthier and healthier and the inflammation in my body was lessened, that they were like, I don't think you're reacting any different than how anybody else would be reacting. And I don't know if this is actually what I would diagnose you as. And, started kind of questioning. And then I followed a holistic psychologist, and she really talked about the gut-brain connection and how the gut affects the health of the gut affects the health of the brain, and vice versa. There's a reason why people talk about having sour stomachs, because it's a real thing. The gut is called the second brain for a reason. And it's also where, a good majority of our immune system lies. So it's really important to make sure that that is healthy. And for me, I also had hormonal issues and stuff. So it just, everything kind of offshot off of the gut health issues. And once I addressed that, that's when everything else kind of started to fall into place. And I'm like, well, wait a second, if I'm having these issues, maybe other people are. Think about how many people in the country have, are on mood stabilizers, or they're on antidepressants or an anti-anxiety, and then think about our standard American diet. Well, if we could change that, then we don't have to have these prescriptions, and maybe we could actually be happy with where we are in life and feel more fulfilled and have a better quality life overall, and not have to rely on medications, which cost money. And, just, it's a big snowball effect. So I'm just trying to empower as many people, and women in particular, as possible, to kind of take back the reins and be like, okay, this is something that I need to address and take radical responsibility for where you're at, and no shame in it. Like, everybody's been through terrible things, done terrible things. It's no shame. It's just, okay, this is where I'm at. These are the facts, and then go from there. And, you can't really, if you're not going to be honest with yourself and be willing to do the work that it takes to actually implement changes, then it's not going to work, because you're just looking for a pill. And that's not what actually ends up bringing you health in the long run.
Very good. And touching on that connection from gut to brain,
Mhm.
it's powerful because like in 2020, like I go through these like fasts every year for my birthday. It's like a thing I do. But in those fasts, though, do you know how clear I am mentally? Like I'm already kind of like an executor, and I'll just get it done, get it done, get it done. But I tell people all the time, I'm like my 19-year-old self. Like I'm like knocking things out. Like I am not foggy in the morning. And
Mhm.
every time I get away from the fast and I go back to the standard American diet,
Okay, at least you do it fast because a lot of people don't even do that. So no
so,
judgment.
you know, and I go back to the standard American diet. I'm like, man, like, why am I so sluggish? Like, why is it taking, me so long in the morning to just get into it and do the thing? Because back when I'm off all this crap, I am flowing through my day so much in a state of mental clarity. It's just a different way that I attack my work, even, just for me changing my diet. So that connection from gut to brain is it's a real thing, guys. As somebody who knows those periods or whatever and feeling different in my body, and I'm telling you, these changes for me literally kick in like around day, I don't know, 15 or 16. When I've been doing it consistently for 2 weeks, just 2 weeks of me like saying, look, I'm getting off. I'm not doing all this sugar, all this processed stuff. When I get off of that stuff, I'm a different person.
Yeah,
I'm a
when I
different
tell
person.
people I don't drink coffee, they're like, "What? You don't have caffeine?" I'm like, "I don't have caffeine." They're like, "How do you even go through your day?" And I'm like, "I go through my day." You
That's
just,
insane.
like, and that's the, and it's not that coffee or anything like that is bad, but for some people it can be taxing on their bodies if they're already if they're already stressed out and their body's already having trouble keeping up with the levels of stress that they have in their life. Adding caffeine on top of that, it's like whipping a horse that's like on the ground dying. It's not a good look. So for
Definitely not
me,
a
I had
good look.
to let it go because I was just like, it's not been working well for me. And now when I have caffeine, I'm like, it's way stimulating for me.
Wow, and that's good that you know that now. And I think this has embodied a journey for you, right? With even learning yourself, of course, getting the education around the health piece. And one of the things that I looked at when you wrote in, you said that you are kind of in a period where you have to let go and
Yep.
trust your intuition, Kate. And I
Yep.
bring it to the forefront because this is a show that highlights women, and this is something that many of us, because I even with this very show, and I'm transparent with the guests, I said my intuition for this show had been intact for years. I never executed on it for that amount of time, and it took one conversation the day before my birthday, which was June 24th of this year, to ignite the whole process, to ignite the fact that that intuition was really already intact. All you had to do was act. So I want you to talk to me a little bit about your journey with that, where you are, and how are you keeping yourself on track with making sure that you're building that intuition and still moving and creating this space that Kate wants to live in.
Well, so a side note, my birthday is June 25th. So happy birthday to you, fellow
Wait a minute,
Cancer.
hold on. When is your birthday?
June 25th.
2-5.
Yep, 25.
I said June 24th was the day before my birthday. So we whole birthday twins on here. Okay, Kate, go back to the question. I'm going
Okay,
off.
no, you're fine. I was just like, oh, that's interesting. So for me, it was a learning to come back to myself and trusting myself. And that actually was a really hard journey. It has been, it still is a really hard journey. Like it comes even to the point like where something will tell me, like I'll feel it, like, oh, I should bring a knife in my lunch bag today. And it's like, why would I bring a knife? I'm not gonna need a knife. Lo and behold, later on that day, I needed a knife. Why didn't I bring the knife? And if I had listened to myself, I would have already had the knife. But it's like little things like that I still struggle with. The bigger things, it's actually easier for me to let go of because I don't know. I'm like, well, I got nothing left. There's nothing else that I can do with this. So I'm just going to trust that everything works out and like trust that I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing and it'll be okay. And I'm okay doing the big stuff. It's the little stuff like, forget not putting a knife in or, not grabbing that piece of mail that I should have grabbed or calling that person or doing, whatever it is. it's later on in the day or, the following week or whatever the time span is, realizing like, oh, I should have. And I hate having regrets. They don't feel good inside me. So I'm like, all right, well, these are lessons. There's a reason why all of this stuff is happening. And it's because I'm not listening to myself. And that's another like kind of, not even just a trust thing, but it's like almost like a boundary. It's like, okay, well, if I have boundaries for everybody else and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to listen to that. So how come I'm not listening to myself? If I won't listen to somebody else talk about something, if it doesn't resonate with me, why am I not listening to myself when it is resonating with me? So it's a continuous process that, I mean, even with having this awareness, I'm constantly having to just kind of implement. And, it can be pretty exhausting at times, especially when you're not used to it. But over time, it gets easier and easier, and just being like, okay, all right, well, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, or, having these thoughts, or, feeling a certain way, but I'm going to trust it and go with it. And when you do, that's when kind of like the magic starts to happen. And you're like, whoa, I had no idea that this was going to be awesome, but look how cool this all planned out. And it worked out even better than I could have planned. Yes, it does. So it's, when you start to trust and build that reliability with yourself, I think that's when kind of like you get into a flow in your life overall. And it's really cool to see. And the more often you do it, the more often you'll have more opportunities to do it, and the bigger they'll become too. So it's a really cool exercise. But for me, I had my trust broken, not just with other people, but also with myself, being with people that, around people that maybe gaslit me and made me question my reality and stuff. So coming back into it and being like, okay, no, actually, I can trust myself. I can trust what I'm feeling. I can trust what I'm thinking and the senses that I'm getting, and why I'm feeling a certain way. I can trust those instincts. That has been huge, because I know for a lot of people, and especially women, we tend to get gaslit, not just even in our everyday lives, but also by the medical system. Just being like, oh no, that's not a problem, or oh, it's just you getting old, or oh, it's just your nerves, and here's a prescription, here's an antidepressant, here's whatever it is, and they don't actually listen. And a lot of the times it comes to find out that there was a bigger issue that wasn't addressed, and so it's really important. We have an amazing ability, every person does, and if we're able to tap into that, I think then the world would see a huge difference.
And that's why this platform to me is so important, because I am allowing people to come in and share that light, because so many people need to be ignited by that. It wasn't just a thing like, okay, let's just do this podcast. No, because it's important for me to hear the stories, because I know that the world will be so much different. Even for my own evolution, from before I found my voice, I was still getting things done and, being the workhorse and doing that. But it wasn't until I really tapped into this thing and said, no, this is how I'm going to live it out. This is how I'm going to do it, that I really seen the biggest shift in my life. And that was just from 2020 to now. So these 4 years have been that reintroduction, and really a place that I said, anyone that I can tap and say, you better do it now, because time is limited. You better do it. So that's really
yes. I found for myself too that like, if you're getting something, you better act on it, because if you don't, you're going to miss out on it, or it's just going to get louder and louder, and you may not like that, so.
Yes, absolutely. I want you to tell the listeners, because I know you have some things that are coming up that you're working on. I want you to tell them what's coming next, so they can be tuned in to how they can work with you on a more deeper level.
Yeah, so I'm super excited. Make sure you sign up for my newsletter and my mailing list on my website, integratewithkate.net. I have a couple of things in the works that's going to be coming out in the next week or two. I've been working on an ebook, as well as a 30-day online self-paced program that is kind of like an intro into gut health and nervous regulation, and just some really interesting information that I think a lot of people will resonate with and find really useful in implementing in their everyday life that isn't necessarily talked about at your doctor's office or by a lot of other health coaches, because again, I have that kind of connection where that was my lived experience for so long. So it's something that I'm super passionate about, and I just want to, bring other people into that so that they can be empowered and, take back their health and control of their lives and their happiness.
I love it. I love it. And that self-paced is we're so busy now. It's so important that we have those options to where we can kind of go and plug and play as we have time, because there's so many competing priorities. So I love that you're creating something where people have that flexibility to get the knowledge on their time schedule, because I know I'm always running around and I need that space to Sinead, you can do it.
I'm like the replay queen. I'm like, okay, let me just sign up for this so that I can catch up on the replay.
Okay, I want you to give us your final thoughts. So if someone was to listen to this and they don't get nothing else, they need to get this one thing. I'm going to cue to you for final thoughts, and then we'll be back to close the show.
Okay, so my final thoughts are, to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, not even just with food, but that you're being kind to yourself. Talk to yourself like you actually love yourself. That has been a huge, huge leap that I took in my healing process, was when I started to actually love myself and show myself, hey, I love you. Hey, I'm going to take care of you. Hey, I'm going to do these things, and start showing up for myself and standing up for myself and having boundaries, whether it be with food, with people, with situations, with anything. And just, that has been the most, I think, pivotal aspect of healing. It was kind of like the final clinker, the final clinch to it all, because you can have, like I said, you can have the best diet, you can take all the supplements you want and stuff, but if your nervous system is dysregulated and you're constant fight or flight, and you're not going to be able to heal and live your happiest life. So I really think it's important to make sure that you're listening to yourself and taking care of, your own needs, and then you can start pouring the overflow of love and happiness that you have into other people.
That's good. Pour from the overflow. You have to have enough inside to fill you up, and you pour from that overflow. It's something that we as women especially need to remember. Kate, I have to thank you. It's been a beautiful interview. Thank you so much for the information. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing in the world.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining the Her Voice podcast. And for everyone that's out here, we love you. We know we want you on the show too. If you are a woman, champion your voice. As always, I'm your fabulous host. And remember to let your voice shine.